Uh, All right. Well, let's dive in. I am really excited about this next hour. So thanks everybody for joining. We have an incredible lineup of women here and an awesome set of questions and topics to run through. I want to give a little bit of backdrop and context on why we're here in the first place. You do see different events, blog posts, thought leadership on International Women's Day or Women's History Month, where it's kind of a one and done thing. Well, we're as Tercera um, kicking off a broader initiative this year around DEI and specifically focused on elevating and accelerating women in IT services. And I'm really, really excited about this because I do think that broadly speaking, the this lame trend on DEI in this country is really, really a shame. And we have a value at Tercera on being constructive contrarians, and so we want to have an agenda and do something about it. And that's not just one and done, but have a series of things we're doing this year as it relates to building out an advisory group to drive and promote women in IT services leadership. We have a series of executive dinners. We had our first one in February. We have one coming up in June, another one in Georgia in September. And then we're sponsoring a broader IPO program to try to accelerate women in services CEO roles. Because when we founded the firm, it was really incredible to us that we studied 60 different companies, and there was one CEO of 60 that was female. And so we got to do something about it. And this is part of a broader series. And again, incredibly honored and excited to have 6 women from our 7 portfolio companies join us today to take part in a series of questions and a dialogue. And so why don't I do the intros because it's a really, really great group that we have, and then I'll open it up. I will say we are going to open it up to questions from the audience here, and so we're going to use the Q&A feature of Zoom. If you do have questions as we run through, feel free to pop them into the Q&A. We'll facilitate and try to pull them through over the course of the hour. But with that, I'll start with the intros. And the first is Margaret. So Margaret, wave for us. It's great to have Margaret here. She's our CMO over at Beyond ID. I think the most recently to be added to the portfolio, coming in and joining us from Washington, D.C., where there's lots of change happening in and around your area right now.
Very interesting
But
time to be here.
for sure, for sure. And so I asked every one of our panelists here today to give me the little fun fact. And Margaret's fun fact was that her idol is Julia Child. And I also asked her what's one word to describe herself. And related to the fun fact, the one word was hostess because she loves to throw parties. So we're all coming to a party at your house, Margaret,
Yeah,
at
please
some point.
come on.
So welcome, I guess, to the portfolio because it's been relatively recent, and welcome to the panel. Secondly, from Black Diamond is Sherry joining us from North Carolina. Sherry, wave. It's good to have you on. She's a managing partner over at Black Diamond, and her fun fact, and I did not know this until yesterday, is that she is a 3-time Division I soccer champion. So comes out of Chapel Hill. And so 3 Div 1 championships, like that's legit. And speaks to her one word, which is committed. I was going to say competitive, but committed I thought was a great word. So welcome to the panel, Sherry, and one of the really founding team members of Black Diamond.
Great to be here.
Awesome to have you. And then Kim, who I've known for a very long time. Kim, thanks for joining us. One of my favorite titles, Chief Talent, Culture, and Wellness Warrior. I'm a big wellness person myself. She's one of the co-founders at Hakoda, our Snowflake business. And she's a big mountain climber, focused on the 14ers in the Colorado area, but also is a certified yoga instructor. And her one word, I would have guessed this, was energetic. And so great to have you on, Kim. And
Thanks,
I was
Chris.
trying to think, what is the amount of years now that we've known each other? It's got to be, is it 15 maybe
At
in
least
that range?
15. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back. It does. Jennifer Wright is joining us from Orium. She's the one Canadian on the panel. We have an international and diverse group on the location side, and so Jennifer, thanks for joining us. She is a road tripping nomad, was her fun fact, which speaks to me as well. Has done lots and lots of travel. And again, related to that fun fact, her one word was curious. So Jennifer, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And then Holly is joining us from out of the country, Chief People Officer over at Valientus. And she comes from a family of five. I come from a family of five, vigorous debaters, but she also played Luna Lovegood in Harry Potter movies, or auditioned to play Luna. Is that what, do I have that right, Holly?
Auditioned. I wish I got the part, but I sadly didn't. If I'd
And
been
her
paid
what?
part though, so
and And Holly's one word was empathetic, which as a chief people officer is an incredibly important one word descriptor, I would say. And then last but certainly not least is a Kalamar from Zenify, who is the sponsor and helped us promote today's event. So thank you for putting this on for us. Fun fact here was raised on a horse farm, competed on horses your entire life, college national championship rodeo team, I think. Do I have that right?
Yep.
And your one word was driven.
Yeah.
So an awesome group of women, again, honored and thankful that everyone has joined us here. So a little bit of background and color commentary on everyone to kick things off. Again, as a reminder, any questions, pump them into the Q&A, and then the team will start to filter those through over the course of the webinar. So we're going to start with a bit of a jump ball for the group. Let me change my screen now that the slides are down. There we go. So now I can see everybody. So I mentioned this earlier, but the gap in female representation in IT services is more pronounced than a lot of industries. And so, you know, to anyone who wants to dive in, what do you think one thing is that needs to happen or could happen at the industry, company, or even an individual level to try to have more women enter and advance in IT services? One thing, they try to make it as tactical and specific again at either the industry, company, or individual level. Any takers?
I can start. I would just highly encourage, all of our organizations to implement, mentorship and sponsorship programs particularly for females. And I think one of the things that we've recognized at Hakoda, especially at the entry level, we hire interns and they become associates. And the first thing we do is assign them a mentor. And we have seen just an enormous amount of confidence in those women and interns who have strong mentors that are guiding them and coaching them along the way. So that would be my one thing from an industry and company perspective.
Anyone else on that?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I couldn't agree more, Kim. I think mentorship is super important. I think I'd also be looking at how we can get into schools, whether that be high schools, university, college, to start to engage and kind of demonstrate role model behavior. Because when you can see people doing what you may be interested in doing and find a pathway to get there, I think that can be really inspiring as well.
Great. That's great. What about, I'm curious from Callan and Jennifer's perspective, being on kind of the delivery and technical side, there's often maybe more of a density of women in kind of HR and marketing. Technical is a gap. Nothing against HR and marketing, because I'm a big fan. I love it. But the technical, like, is there anything specific on technical roles that can be done and should be done?
One thought that I always have on this is recognizing that there's a lot of roles that I like to think of as being technical adjacent. So it's true, like the folks that we get that are applying for some of our most technical jobs, we don't get as many female candidates coming in for those, but we end up with a lot of really strong women in the roles that are around those. And it turns out that a lot of the skills for those roles are also needed for leadership or great leadership qualities. So I think that if you're always thinking that to be a leader of technologists, you have to be a technologist yourself, is kind of a falsity. And that I would rather promote, like, what are the skills required for a great leader to lead and develop those teams, even if they themselves don't come with the same sheer technical skills that some of the individual contributors on that team do.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that even just the word technical, redefining what we mean by technical as well. There are so many soft skills, or sometimes referred to as power skills, that go into being a strong person in technology. So, whether that's client communication skills, whether it's leadership of a team, all those type of things. Some of our strongest technical leaders, whatever that technical role is, really emphasize those power and soft skills adjacent to the programming or the architecture or those kind of more detailed hard skills. So I think that's really important when looking at some of those roles. And then I think, there's that stat that goes around a lot of, men are more likely to apply to a job when they have 60% of the job requirements. Women, they feel that they need 100%. And so going back to things, this is very tactical, but going back to things like job descriptions and getting very essential in the requirements. So it's able to open up the field a little bit more. People feel like they have the check marks on that, and are able to promote more women applying to some of those positions, whether it's internally or externally.
That's great. No, I think I love the council on the job description being very thoughtful about that upfront, spending more time on that upfront. And, often you kind of want to get the job out there, but being intentional there matters for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's two founding team members on this call, Kim and Sherry. Just by way of maybe being on the ground floor, being an advocate for women in the firms from the beginning. Any kind of tips, tricks, best practices, and things that you did as very early members to kind of set a tone within your respective organization to try to drive and encourage women in different positions? Sherry, you can go first.
So sure. So I joined a partnership where it was male dominated and IT technology focused organization. So I think we had 9 people, and as we got up to around 20 to 35 folks, we established a women in finance group internally with the company. So I said I would sponsor it and got a couple of our folks involved to lead it and run it. And we ran it for a few years, and it was very successful. It gave, the women in the company an outlet. I think we're pretty proud today to say we have about 35% of our company are female, but a lot of them are in the tech side. It's not just HR and marketing, but at the same time, we're still meeting and greeting and working on, what's a focus for the women and how do they also climb into some of these leadership positions on the technical side.
Great. Love that. Kim.
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. Well, first of all, I have just a personal story with somebody that is near and dear and someone who I ended up hiring, but it was really around meeting the individual, the female, where they are in their life. So this is one of my talent leaders, actually not on the tech side, but I thought it was really important that she came to me and said, is there any opportunity for part-time work? Because I have 3 young children and would love to balance the work and my professional life with my family, and just opening up that opportunity to be, really meet them where they are. And I think that's true and we actually have quite a few on the technical side as well, who, we've really provided an environment where they can balance, being a professional technical leader as well as a mom, a wife, or whatever they need to do outside of work. So I think that's also very important. Similarly to Margaret, we also very early on, from an organic level, built a women in data team. And I'm very grateful for the folks down in our Costa Rica office who really stepped up and said, we want to advocate and be the support network for all women in data. And they're doing that internally as well as the local community with universities and such. So I think those are things as a co-founder that I'm super proud of and excited to see where that goes in the future, because just supporting and providing that level of, that environment for them to do what they need to do is super important.
Yeah, I think it's so, like, when you can get these groups moving, it then becomes this this bottom up organic movement, as opposed to being pushed from the top down all the time. Then over time it meets in the middle. But getting the flywheel going is so important. And I think that becomes like this, it's a founder DNA, many cases, to get the flywheel moving. Any other, just kind of jump ball to anyone, kind of individual stories, impact stories? Because I think, Kim, you also said, like, being flexible at the time of life and meeting them in the middle or meeting them part way. Any other impact stories that folks can share that maybe were outsized, or where you kind of did something for someone that might be inspirational for someone listening?
I mean,
I open up my, this is Margaret. I open up my LinkedIn network to anyone that will reach out to me. And so I often get through my university or through former employers or whatever, people who will reach out and say, I'd love to talk to you. And I give them the opportunity to go through my LinkedIn, find anybody that you want to talk to, and I'll set that relationship up. If, I'll send them a note, I'll connect you. And I've helped several people move on their way in their career or explore new aspects of their career that way. It's a pretty simple motion, but it's had some pretty big results and helped people land in different places.
Awesome. Holly.
Yeah, and so just to build on what Kim was saying around kind of meeting people where they're at. Obviously, we all work within multinational organizations, and one of the things that we really noticed within Valiantis is that people felt like they constantly had to be online or on, and we just started putting at the bottom of our emails like a very simple strap line that said, we're a global organization. You're receiving this email at a time that works for me, but I absolutely don't expect a response until your normal working hours. And I think that's a really small thing, but I've had quite a few candidates actually kind of reach out to me to say that really impressed me, that that's something that you have as standard across your organization, because it just takes that step to say, this is a safe environment. We know that everybody is human and everybody has their working life and their home life, and they need the two to work really well together. And I think particularly with encouraging female candidates to apply, that has had actually a much bigger impact than you would expect from such a small action.
Love it. Krista, how are we doing on Q&A?
We did just get one question a few minutes ago. Saying, trying to avoid politics, what does diversity look like in, say, 1 to 3 years? The large consultancies are backing away, and they were the leaders and inspiration to the mid and smaller groups. Anybody know?
Any takers for the non-prepared question? That's not an easy one.
What does diversity look like in 1 and 3 years? It says actually. So 1 year from now, and then maybe 3 years from now.
So I'm happy to give this a shot as the non-American or non-Canadian, non-North American.
Safer than the rest of us.
Yeah, maybe. So when I think about diversity, I really kind of think about, it's not surprising really, I think about empathy from a humanity level. And I think that everybody can connect with that at some level. So this is about creating a level playing field for everybody. So take out all of these labels, or take out all of these kind of, I don't want to call them buzzwords or anything like that, because I don't think that's fair. But if you strip this all back, this is about creating opportunities from an empathetic and from a humanitarian perspective. So if we can boil this right down to basics, and you can live as an organization by your values, which for the most part will align with that, I think that you can continue to embed diversity in your day-to-day lives without, whilst potentially avoiding any political impact. And I think certainly that's how we're trying to start to look at this, because it's still super important from our perspective as an organization. I don't want that train to stop.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great answer. Any other thoughts there? I certainly have some opinions, but I'll defer to the experts on the call.
I do have something to add, and I actually did prep some thoughts around this, but it was in regards to a different question. And I think in professional services, so much of what we do is around people. And in order to enjoy the work that we do, you have to enjoy people and have an appreciation for what makes them unique, their individuality. And in the work that we do at Zenify, we often have teams working together, and this might be a team of 5 people or 15 people over the course of months, years maybe. And if everyone was cookie cutter and everyone came in with the same perspective and the same experience and the same knowledge, we wouldn't be successful. So I thrive off of the individuality of our team members. We look for that in the candidates we're interviewing and the teams that we're putting together, is like, get diverse ways of thinking and put them together, and then that's going to be successful. So whether that means different backgrounds or, you know, religions or race or whatever, it's like, at the end of the day, it's all about just that diverse thought. And if you seek to achieve that, you'll come up with a really great diverse group of people.
Yeah, it's so well said. And I guess I'll pile on with I mean, Holly, your word empathetic. Like I do have empathy for some of the companies that are having to shut these programs down because they're losing commercial contracts. Like it's pretty binary and it's very hard. And while it's easy to poke fun, and I do, like, why would you do that? Um, I do have some empathy that, you know, we just have a situation right now that people are trying to preserve and jobs in many cases, and their contracts are coming under fire. Yeah, at the same time, I think 3 years from now, 5 years from now, this dust is going to blow through and this chaos will blow through, and learned experiences will carry the day. And I think, you know, diversity in the end is always going to make you better. You know, and I was just talking about my own personal, like the reason I'm so passionate about this is like I have had some of the most amazing women leaders around me in my 30-year career. That is my learned experience. And, you know, and obviously there's a couple of them that work with me, a number of them that work with me at Tercera, but I mean, you know, Yamini over at HubSpot, Kat over at ServiceNow, Jen Odess, Heidi Speargy, Lori Williams, like these are Katie Brown, Miriam, like I can rattle off dozens of women that have helped make me and our organizations better. And I think that over time carries the day. Like when you have that learned experience, guess what? You then believe in it. Right now, I think we're in this reactive period that sucks all around. But I think the dust will settle over time, and people's learned experiences will carry the day. Off my political soapbox. Back to the questions, unless anyone else wants to weigh in on that one.
I do have a couple other questions here in the chat, Chris, or do you want to continue with your?
No, yeah, no, fire away.
As a male, how can I support my female colleagues without overstepping? Anyone?
That's a really good one. Who wants that one?
I would say one thing is just be an active listener with an empathetic mindset. And, you know, sometimes it's not always, I'm coming to you because I want you to solve my problem. I just need you to listen. And sometimes that's all I need, right? So that element of active listening, and then just being supportive, but not having to solve for, I think is one of the things that I have really appreciated about the men that I work with.
Guys generally suck at that.
I know.
I mean, that's a universal dude thing. But I think it's great. It's great coaching. And I do think having two ears and one mouth for a reason. Listen twice as much. It's a consulting skill too.
Yep. Jennifer, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'll say two things. I think we often see the words sponsorship and mentorship used interchangeably. And I think for men, it's an important thing to recognize that, you know, mentorship is so important, but the going above and beyond is really that sponsorship piece. How can you be the advocate for that woman in a room that they're not part of? Be speaking about some of their accomplishments, be promoting, not a promotion, but promoting them in terms of their brand and the successes that they've had. And then I think the second piece is really around credit. You know, how can you attach that project, even if you're the leader who's accountable for something? Oh man, I couldn't have done this without person X, or that type of thing. I think it's so important to be, for everyone as leaders, to be over promoting folks within our teams, but especially for women, and making sure that their accomplishments and their names are attached to some really great things.
Those are great. Those are any examples that anyone wants to share about people maybe in your careers that have been influential and have kind of, you know, helped you get to the positions you're in?
I mean, I can go. When I think about this, I had a boss very early on in my career who he trusted me enough to let me fail, and he gave me enough responsibility that I felt a real accountability to him and it would be the same with a woman too, but he just happened to be male, but I felt a real accountability to him and the organization to not fail and to have that trust and to be able to walk myself out the plank and know that I had his support. It made me incredibly bold. It made me make smarter choices. It made me feel accountable. It made me work harder. And I think it's made me ultimately a better leader, because I take that with me into my teams and allow them to do the same thing. And so it was very pivotal for me in my career.
It's great. I love it. Any other
I had a
examples?
similar situation. Interviewed with a VP early on in my career, sort of trying to change paths. Funny enough, from sales to something else. Here I am back in sales, but yeah, he created a position for me, which was pressure, but also, you know, rewarding and made me feel great. And then threw me into a team of all women that all reported to him and kind of said to them, teach her everything you know. So I felt that same way, that responsible, you know, I want to be successful. I want to do a good job for him and also earn their respect. And as it turned out over time, they could move up and I could roll into one of their positions. And it was sort of a really cool development path that I didn't expect. But it really kind of helped me turn a corner and experience that kind of leadership and someone who gave you a shot when maybe you didn't know if you would get one.
Really good. Really good. Krista, how are we doing on
Okay,
audience Q&A?
I have one more. Women in technology roles are often not as respected as men in the same role. How does this panel advise navigating in these situations?
Ignore it.
Yeah, they don't give it any merit. It's without weight.
And never doubt your potential. I think one of my past mentors and leaders when I was early in my career, she was a chief administrative officer at the time, and I was working in HR in a corporate environment. And, you know, that was, you know, she just pushed me beyond my limits and said, never doubt your true potential. Even though someone may not believe in you, believe in yourself. So I think for me, it's really that advice of, yeah, it's hard. It's hard some days, but never doubt what you truly are, you know, capable of doing, and go for it. I mean, I just say go for it. So
Yeah.
I laugh at the ignore it part, but I think sometimes this is about, yeah, trusting yourself. And I had a boss early in my career who was male, and he said, Callan, you have really good instinct, trust it. And I'd never really thought about that before. And that has stuck with me because I still today sometimes think, hey, someone else might be doubting me, or like this, I might not be prepared, but you know what, I'm going to trust my instinct and go with that. And that to me has been really powerful when I'm in situations where I feel like, hey, I might not have the respect that I wanted or needed coming into this situation.
That's really good too. It's really good. Kim, I want to go back to you real quick on the statistics. If I'm not mistaken, at Dakota, there's about 30% of the business, and it's grown incredibly fast in 4 years. It's 30% are women, 20% at the leadership level. But I know it's an important kind of initiative or set of initiatives that you've been driving. You know, what are some of the other things that you're trying to do to continue to move that needle?
yeah, well, I've kind of talked a little bit about a couple of these programs, but really there's two things more at that entry level, ground level, and that's you know, our internship program. I think this last go around, I think we hired 11 new interns this past February, and 7 of them are female, and they're all coming from, you know, local university in Costa Rica. And so it's having that, you know, connection in your local community to elevate, you know, females in STEM, you know, in STEM programs and things of that nature. And the other thing that I think is really valuable is that Women in Data program, where our females are showing up in universities and they're talking to other females about their opportunity in this industry, and they're hosting boot camps in our office so that they come to the office and they also get to experience the culture and the supportive environment that we've created to help them succeed in a career path that is generally, you know, male dominated. So I think, again, it's from those recruiting efforts, it's developing those relationships in local communities, and then allowing that to like grow and evolve internally, I think has been really, really helpful for us. And the other thing I will say is that, you know, our senior and executive leadership team, amazing network, just like you, Chris, of wonderful females in these industries. And so and taking a chance and just saying, hey, I trust that you can do this. I have confidence in you, and come, be on this journey with me. That network and professional, just network has been really, really helpful to bring more females into our business.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Holly, what about you? I mean, obviously, Valiantis of our portfolio is the largest by way of just geographic footprint, international, many acquisitions. How are you trying to drive this systemically, not just ad hoc through, a few smart people?
Yeah, so I think that for me, I try to get our leaders to look at things almost at quite an individual level in some respects. So talk to your team about what makes them tick, what do they like, and then, well, what are they interested, what are they passionate about, and then when you know that as a leader, you can also help look for opportunities within the business to small exciting opportunities where they can grow and develop. I think systemically, from a Valiantis perspective, we're really focused at the moment on career paths, and it kind of links back to what I was saying earlier around role modeling in high schools and colleges. Like, if you can see it, you can believe it. So being able to demonstrate the really massive opportunities across the organization geographically, but also, I guess, hierarchically, if you want to talk about it in terms of promotion, but also careers aren't really linear anymore. They're kind of squiggly. So if you demonstrate that you don't have to go up, you could also become an expert kind of over here. So that's what we're trying to do with our career paths. We're calling it managing my career, because I think that it is also it's really important for the individual to be fully engaged with that. I think all of us probably have experience where they feel like, I want to be the driver of my career. And particularly for women in an organization where they might have other responsibilities outside of the workplace, being able to demonstrate that and layer on top where I started this, which is around making sure that your leaders really know their people. Because if you can have both the career path conversation, but also know the individual, know what they're passionate about, you can kind of drive that a bit more systemically. Now, we're on that journey. We're not there yet, and we're trying to make sure that it doesn't become a really complex beast. But it's quite exciting to see it grow.
No, I think you should call it Project Squiggly. I liked that. It's not linear; it's more squiggly. But I think that's, that takes a level of there's a little bit of, maybe, whether it's the listening skill, it's really understanding, it's a little bit of customization, but not just planning that it's a straight career line. I think that's really, really well said. I actually have a text in question that I want to ask. Somebody, I won't say who it is, Chris Conant, that doesn't know how to use the Q&A feature, but texted me directly. But it's a really good question, so I want to use it. He said, how can organizations better support working moms who want to start a family while also being very aggressive about advancing their career, sometimes requiring some form of always on availability? Any advice to that, coaching on that front? It's a great question.
I can speak there. I have little kids at home. So I think that, having open and honest dialogue and being realistic about what the expectations are of a parent versus an employee, and allowing that parent to go dark. I mean, one of the conversations I had with our CEO when I started is, I said, I go dark every day from 6 to 9. I will get back on. I will talk to you, I will check Slack, but I have dinner and bath and bed, and it is an all-encompassing activity. And that was a clear understanding, from the get-go, and he was incredibly supportive of that. But I think being able to have an open dialogue, and I think, the other thing is helping, particularly first-time parents who don't understand what is coming for them. So
Yeah.
it's very easy to be pregnant and be like, well, I'm going to have a baby, but it's not going to be a big deal. And then the baby gets there. And if you're me, I was terrified of my children. I love them, but I was terrified. So, allowing them to sort of find their own path and support them through that, and having a continuous open conversation. And I think measuring on outcomes, and not focusing on showing up for a certain time, but making sure that the deliverables that are laid out for that parent are being met. You can't ask more than that, and then just letting the other stuff go.
That's awesome advice, Margaret. And I will recall, give Margaret credit, as a board member interviewing a new CMO. She told me the same thing about these are my windows, and I think setting those expectations, with executives, with the team, with a board, um, and then focusing on the outcomes. That's really what matters at the end of the day. I have, similar. I have my own DNS window, do not schedule, where it's my time. And I think that's just self-management. Everyone works really hard, but you got to manage yourself too. That's probably the hardest part that a lot of people have. Any
Yeah.
other thoughts there on
I have
advice on?
to. We definitely all need boundaries for sure, but I've come from I was the person whose child was sleeping under my desk, that was sick, so that I could be at work, so then I could take her to the doctor because I couldn't miss work and I had to be there in the office. So for employees that work with us, it's nice because I kind of I had the hard route. And so now, people that are either new moms or some of them have had their second baby, I'm the same way. I'm like, just get it done. I know you're going to get it done. If you need help, call. I'm not checking your hours. I'm not checking to see, what time you're there and what time you leave. I know you're going to get the job done. And if you need help, you'll raise your hand. And having compassion and empathy too for what they're going through when the child's sick at home and they're trying to juggle work and the child. And so it's kind of cool to be on the other side where my kids are grown, and now I can at least share from my past with some of those folks.
Great. Any other thoughts on this one? It's a great question.
Something my husband and I, something my husband and I always reflect on is just how fortunate we are to be able to work from home. And I don't think I could do it if I was in the office every day. And I don't know with all of our companies if we're all work from home or hybrid or some in the office, but I would encourage that as a policy. And then also just what we can do outside of just this circle. But we hear a lot of companies that are requiring their workers to come back to the office. And I just think, gosh, that's so hard for those families with children who are on school schedules and they get sick and there's a play in the afternoon and things that they need to go to. And so as much as we can do to encourage where you can work from home, to do that, and that's on social media or LinkedIn, I want to continue to advocate for that in the larger ecosystem.
That's great. No, I think I don't believe any of our firms are 100% in office. I think everyone is hybrid, and some of them are fully virtual. Even as Tercera, we're fully virtual. We don't have an office. So, but I think that makes a big difference as well, for sure. Krista, how are we doing on Q&A inbound? Anything in the queue?
Nope, just some comments on commentary on the last questions. I don't know if you want to continue with your question.
Yeah, no, keep going through on the in terms of advice you would all give, or each of you could give to up and comers earlier in their career. Like what's something that you would maybe tell yourself back in the day, or advice you'd give to someone who wants to make a difference but doesn't necessarily know how to advocate for themselves or for others early in their career?
I'll just chime in there. I think one thing for me that I think about a lot is just, really building your professional network from a very early stage in your career. I look back on the 30 years, Chris, and it's just phenomenal to me, like the people that I have encountered, and where that has allowed me to grow in my own professional career. Like the network that I developed 15 years ago led to an opportunity to co-found a company like Hakoda. So those are I guess when I speak to other women and I talk to folks within our company, it's like, this is your opportunity to begin the network that are going to carry you through for the rest of your career. So, and not only build that, but you have to nurture it. You have to stay in contact. You have to reach out every so often. And how are you doing? And, just again, it's that empathetic, professional conversation that will help you, get where you want to go someday in life. So that's my 2 cents, I guess, around advice.
It's funny, almost everything Kim says, she uses, we're on the same wavelength. I had 3 things that I thought of to answer this question. It's sort of, pursue education, continue to improve, nurture your connections. And also the biggest one that I learned early on was that no one was going to give me a mentor. I had to go get one. And I had to pick one and find one and ask them to do it. And it was really a humbling experience. It was really interesting, the different variety of folks I targeted and also who I ended up with maybe. They weren't necessarily accidental, but I think that's really important to learn that you don't have to sit around and wait for someone to hand you one or assign you one. Go get one, maybe get 5.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think also that on that point, it's not one mentor or sponsor for the rest of your life. It evolves over the course of your career, and be mindful of that or intentional about that. Like that it will, but you got to lean into it. They're not going to say, okay, Sherry, let's have a meeting. Like you got to make it all happen for sure. Any other thoughts there? Advice on the kind of up and comers?
I think my advice would be, and my poor teams hear me say this all the time, progress, not perfection. I say this as a former perfectionist. And I also think that the way that education is structured, it does encourage, like, how do you get to the absolute perfection? But I think a lot of times when I see people who are trying to get into leadership get stuck is they want to do absolutely everything perfect, but something that's 80% great that is out that you can start to see and to iterate on is far better than something that's 100% awesome that may not ever get out into the world or take much longer to get there. And so I'd encourage folks, men and women, to reflect on, where can I make progress and then iterate on it, as opposed to being stuck on, how to be perfect and how to get something absolutely right.
So smart.
Yeah, I was just going to go back because learning how to juggle the Q&A and chat in the webinar is a new thing to me. So I think people are having a hard time typing quickly enough to get their questions in when we're in the middle of something. I wanted to pop back to the hybrid remote work because I feel like that is a big one for folks. So Casey Foss, one of our advisors, said she couldn't get that question in quickly enough. But on the in-person work conversation, she completely agrees. She said it makes it easier for dual income households to have flexibility or hybrid working conditions. She said, that said, mentoring and growing upcoming female leaders, if not all leaders, can also benefit from in-person mentorship, especially early in their career. How do you guys individually balance the two?
That's great. So the balance, the two between virtual versus in-person mentorship.
Yeah.
Any thoughts there? It's a great question.
I would
Casey.
just, I'll add my 2 cents on that one because it's very, it's a big part of our internship program is for those individuals to come to office, 4 days a week. And we have the mentors and people that are supporting them in the office with them. So, and they have also, shared with us that is super beneficial to have that, especially they're fresh out of university. So they're just learning how to be a professional. They're learning our business. They're learning how to be a consultant. And that's really hard to do when you're sitting in an office at home by yourself with no interaction with others. So I think very early on in career, it is critical to have that in-person, face-to-face, like help me, figure out how to solve this problem. And doing that in person, I think, is more beneficial. Not that it can't be done virtually, but I think it's been more advantageous to have in-person conversation and mentorship when you're early in your career.
Thanks, Kim.
Any other questions in there, Krista?
We have quite a few. So
All right, go.
Okay.
Keep going. I'm gonna. Why don't you fire those questions away? We do have a speed round at the end, 4 questions that everyone has to answer, and so we'll just make sure we leave 7 minutes for that.
Okay. Just there on the point of younger people finding their way, one of our attendees has 2 very bright granddaughters that are still in grade school. As they approach high school, do you have any recommendations, not only around academics, but extracurriculars, as they've noticed a lot of accomplishments on this panel with those? Anyone want to help?
I can jump in there. I think that's a tough one. I would say let them experiment and try as much as they possibly can with the things that they love, and finding, what your passion is. It's going to take different shapes. But, I agree with whoever said the squiggly thing. Like, my career only makes sense if you look backwards, not if you look forwards. And there's so many elements of my passion that I can see throughout my career that wouldn't make sense to somebody who is looking at it on LinkedIn or in a resume. And so much of that stems from being allowed to try things, and, whether it was art or, having internships or singing in a choir or cooking or whatever. Finding the way to be creative for me was incredibly important, and finding different outlets for that was important. And use that creativity to this day. But you know, don't harp too much on the career. Like the career will happen. Let them experiment and have fun, and find what they really love, because we work more than we do anything else. And so really loving it is really important, because you don't want to spend all of your time doing something you don't like.
Totally.
Right.
I couldn't agree more on that one. One of my values is like lifelong learning. And I look back on some of those opportunities that, you know, on paper might not have been for university, college, whatever it may be, have been, you know, cookie cutter for it. But I think that there's so many opportunities beyond, you know, I want to go to law school. So working all the way backwards to what I need to do in grade 8 or whatever that may be. Not turning down interesting opportunities and chances to explore, I think would be my advice for someone younger.
Yeah, I think it's Jennifer, you used it, the letting your values guide you over time, but it's hard. There's so much pressure on a given career that makes certain amount of money and what the school does or the college does. And so that, you know, that longer term perspective and figuring out what are your values and letting that drive, and, you know, trying to encourage youth that it's not about just that first job or second job, because they're just jobs, right? The values really matter, but the pressure that they all have is so intense to go into the job that they feel like it's going to be the forever thing.
Yeah, you can even back that up a step, going to college to study the thing that you think you're going to do, which probably more than 50% of the time is not what you end up doing. We're going through that at home, and it's really interesting process, right? You don't have to be that.
We joke about it all the
That's right.
time, but I was a Spanish major. So so I can communicate in Spanish, but it has nothing to do with where I ended up. And I do love to speak Spanish, and I loved that major, but it doesn't shape who I am, and certainly doesn't shape my professional career.
Yeah, I think there's just something about, like, when you're younger, you think about, you know, am I going to go into marketing? Am I going to go into business? And, you know, as folks on this panel, there's so many tiny little facets of each of those worlds, and, you know, that zigzag and how you get there, and all those opportunities building up to get you where you want to be going, and something you're passionate about.
Yeah, we use a kind of a tagline at Hakoda. It's really about, you know, your career is a journey, not a destination, and that, you know, you will learn constantly throughout your career, and it will shift, and it will move, and it will go up, and it will go sideways, and, you know, not to be stuck on, hey, I have to go into marketing, or I have to go into business, or I have to go into technology. Like, it's a journey. Every single experience leads you to the next one and leads you to the next one. So not to get hung up on, oh, I'm not doing exactly what I maybe had intended to do. Guarantee that experience is going to lead you to the path that you were meant to be on. So
Krista, what else we got?
So I know we've got, might ask room for two more. One
Go.
is, what are the most effective strategies for companies to implement to support single mothers considering their specific needs?
So I'm happy to give this one a go, because I'm not sure that there are specific strategies that I would recommend holistically. I think I would be looking to do things on a case-by-case basis that both meet the needs of the business as well as the needs of the individual. I'm kind of speaking from experience there, where I have somebody in my team who's a single mum, and we had a really impactful conversation when we first started working together. And she said, I've spent the last 10 years working with people and they've assumed what I can and can't do. Let's not start there. And I was like, great, that I completely agree. And I think it links into what Kim was saying earlier. I think it was you, Kim, saying have that open dialogue about where you are, what your blackout hours are, or whatever that looks like. So I think there are different requirements depending on the family status that you're currently in. My sister's a single mum, and I know that she values that individual dialogue, but something that works for her, you know, she's got a 2-year-old toddler, wouldn't work for my colleague who's got teenage kids. So I think I'd probably go back to less about strategies, more about making sure you have that open dialogue.
Awesome.
So good. That's awesome, Holly.
Thanks. So I know we have about 9 minutes left. I'm going to do one more, and then Chris, I think we'll turn it over to you for rapid fire. And I know there's a couple we didn't get to everyone. So we can, I can ask the panelists, and maybe we can answer some of these questions in an email afterwards, because there are some good ones. I don't want to ignore.
Perfect.
Here's one. How can companies go beyond surface level DEI initiatives to create a truly inclusive and empowering environment for women in tech, ensuring long-term equity and representation at all levels?
Simple one.
Super simple one to end with, just to throw that curveball at you all.
They're not just chipping away at all the things we've been talking about. I mean, it's not like one solution. It's a combination of all the things. And I've seen a lot of cool ideas and comments come up in the Q&A as well. And I think that it's just being aware of all of the different components here, and whether it's specific to women or not, you have to be intentional and make space for all of the little things that ultimately matter.
Yeah, I think it's I love that, and I think that it's kind of like when people say what's the recipe to a great culture. Like, it isn't one thing, it's a lot of little things, and you need to get it to be organic within an organization, and it's everyone's job. Culture's not the CEO's job, it's everyone's job. And I think that's the same thing for DEI, and it's a lot of little examples that come together and create some inertia. I think it's very, very similar to that culture question in many cases, but there certainly isn't a silver bullet. And it's, again, everyone's job, everyone's role to be mindful of it. All right, let's do our rapid fire. So everyone has to play. And so there's 4 questions, and I guess I'll call out, and I'll do random order. So we'll keep it interesting. What did you want to be when you grow up? Kim?
A doctor, but I hated blood, so that didn't work.
Nice. Jennifer?
I wanted to be a lawyer till I learned it was all about precedents and not future facing.
Callan?
A veterinarian like my dad.
Nice. Sherry?
A sportscaster, but the news role didn't work well, so I gave it up.
Margaret?
Journalist. I wanted to be at the front
Journalist.
lines of all the news.
Nice. And Holly?
Depending on the day, it was either an actor, a nurse, or a teacher.
Actor, a nurse, or the teacher? Well, the actor, the Harry Potter thing, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, we can all dream.
All right, well, let's stick with you, Holly, on number 2. Name a leader you admire.
So for me, it would be Jacinda Ardern, who was the previous Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Good answer. Margaret?
Can I say Julia Child, who's my idol? Because I think she's
Yes. There you go.
Julia
You can.
Child. Yeah, started her career late, took no prisoners. She's amazing.
Sherry?
You won't know, but Anson Dorrance, so he was the coach at the University of North Carolina. He was there 47 years and won 23 championships. So I learned a lot. He's written a lot of books. They've helped me, given them to my bosses. Just a fascinating man.
Love it. Good one. Callan?
Yeah, you won't know her. Megan Ronk, she was the director of the Department of Commerce in Idaho, under 40, 2 young kids at home, on the governor's cabinet, speaking in front of the legislature. Pretty impressive.
Jennifer?
I'll go on a more personal level. I'll say one of our VPs on our team, Becky, her motto is, if you feel it, do it gently. And I try to bring that into my day-to-day on a daily basis.
Yeah, Becky's great. That's a great answer. And Kim?
Yeah, I the one that I kind of admire and I've followed a lot is Brene Brown, just for her vulnerability, her authenticity, and just like being courageous. And it's hard to do as a female some days. So I really admire that.
Yeah, she's great. Listen to a lot of her stuff.
Mhm.
This is a little tougher. Being a services leader is blank. We'll go in reverse order. Kim?
Constant learning journey.
Good one. Good one. We'll mix it up. Margaret?
I keep going back to empowering. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the services space, and I find it very empowering.
Holly?
I'd say exhilarating, exhausting, but ultimately
That's
Finish again, and ultimately
satisfying.
love it. All right, Sherry.
I had exhilarating as mine. You never know what each
Yeah.
day, each quarter holds.
Yeah. Callan.
It's loving people for who they are.
Oh, good one. And Jennifer.
I said balance. So finding balance between all the different tensions and whether it's clients or company metrics or employees and making sure they're supported, all about finding that balance.
Great. And then last one, more advice centric, but those looking to advance in their careers should do blank. Margaret, we'll start with you.
Understand the business and the strategy behind it.
That's
Don't
really
just
good.
be a tactician, be a strategist.
Oh, great advice. Holly.
I would say find a mentor, which I suspect probably other people will agree with, but also find your USP. What do you want to be famous for specifically?
That's good. Sherry?
I would say pursue education, including AI. Don't be left behind. Nurture your connections and find that mentor that I was mentioning before.
Yeah. Callan.
Wire yourself to learn from or via osmosis from those around you.
Like it. Osmosis. Great. Jennifer?
Don't ask for permission. I think a lot of times people are waiting for permission to do something. Just do it. You get in far more trouble by not taking that initiative than by taking that step forward and not waiting for permission.
Kim?
Yeah, I would say take on stretch assignments, things that you don't think you're capable of doing, like just go for it and take it on. And, you know, there will be people around you to support you. And last would be open to constant change, especially in this industry. And I've kind of felt this way my entire life. And if I'm not changing, I'm not growing. So it's just being open to whatever challenge is coming at you next. It's like be open to that and allow yourself to change and grow at the same time.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank all of you for giving the time, the advice, the counsel, incredible perspective, and just honored and appreciate you being part of our journey as Tercera, but your willingness to share with everyone. To everyone on the call in, thanks for joining us. We will, I think Krista's point, try to respond to the other questions, send that out, syndicate the information, and then I guess lastly, just for me, it's again an honor to be here, to be able to do this, and a huge shout out to just all the incredible women that I've been able to work with that have inspired me in my 30+ year career. And so we're proud to be doing this. And if there's any suggestions, thoughts from anyone on anything else we can be doing other than the agenda that we've laid out, please do let us know. So thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it.